around the state, really working on getting local officials elected and stuff. I'm not going to take up all very much of his time. I'm going to introduce Dave Weston, our state chair. Please. All right.
As Shannon mentioned, we are on our 77 county tour. And I don't know, we're probably, what, are we 20% of the way there? We're right at 20% of the way there, so we're about 14 counties up.
This is man a coffee.
And going from there. And I would highly recommend the Marcel.
Why don't you just hold up for a second?
So, all right, is everybody ready? You guys, I'm going to shut these doors just a little bit. It's a little loud out there.
What?
But,
no.
So there we go. They can bust in.
Go ahead.
Take that away.
I don't know, open them. Can you speak that direction so they can all hear us?
Well, good point. Good point. There were two sailors. They were Australian. World War II. They get a pass and decide to go into town. And as you might imagine, young sailors, World War II, Australia, different place. They decide to go out and see the sights. They stumble upon a tavern, they walk in, they begin to imbibe in the local flavor of the tavern and become somewhat inebriated, and they realize it's time to go. It's dark outside, and but they realize they need to get back to the barracks, and so they step outside into a very dense London fog, and they realize they have no idea where they are. And they realize that they don't know how to get back to where they are. And all of a sudden, Winston Churchill comes walking up to go into the tavern. And one of the Australian sailors accosts him and says, "Hey, bloke, do you know where we are?" And Churchill is somewhat miffed that they don't understand who he is. And so he says, "Do you boys know who I am?" And one Australian sailor looks to the other one and says, "Boy, are we in a fix. We don't know where we are. He doesn't know who he is." And to me, that being said, is exactly what it's like to be a Democrat in Oklahoma right now. They don't know where they are. They don't know what they stand, what their party stands for, and it's time for those people to begin to realize that they need to affiliate their values and align with the party that most fits what they believe in. And there's a lot of very conservative Democrats out there that don't realize that their party is in favor of killing babies, that their party is in favor of non-traditional marriage.
Thank you.
You know, it's kind of like Jerry Falwell said one time. They even get it right in the barnyard, but the Democratic Party can't, as far as that's concerned. And so, based upon that, we just want to kind of get out and we want to talk to our counties. We want to talk to our county leadership. We want to talk to you guys because we've got to basically get organized, fellas, because our community organizer-in-chief is doing just that. Right now, as we speak, Organizing for America, which is Obama's next step, is actively going out. They are surveying voters. They are re-registering voters in all different areas. They are moving. They're not taking this off election year off, basically. They are moving forward and trying to do everything they can to recapture Congress because they understand that if they do, they can continue to cram their leftist agenda down our throat. And our freedoms will not survive if that happens, period. Because I firmly believe that Barack Obama wants to be a monarch. He's not interested in being president. I believe, personally, I can't prove this, but I believe that he'll run for a third term. I really do. And people that stop, I mean, John and I had breakfast with a fraternity brother of mine up in Enid last week, and I said that to him. He's an attorney. Obviously, you know, attorneys are always pretty skeptical, pretty cynical. He goes, "He won't do that." But I believe that he will because, you know, most people come back and say it's against the Constitution. Well, what about the Constitution has he obeyed so far? Nothing. And I just can't, he doesn't have the personality in which I see him riding off into the sunset. And I firmly believe that he wants to become a monarch, and after he becomes a monarch, he will become a tyrant. And in so doing, our freedom will not last if we're not careful. And the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. And our founders believed in freedom, that there was a true type of freedom, and that there was a false type of freedom. The true type of freedom involves doing what you ought to do. The false type of freedom, which is the selfish type, says I'm going to do whatever I want to do. The problem with only doing what you want to do is ultimately you have no self-restraint. It's selfish, and you will end up stepping into something that enslaves you, that entraps you. If you do, if it's no holds barred, do whatever I want to, ultimately you're going to come across something: drugs, sex, alcohol, whatever, gambling, you name it. You're going to step into something that's going to have a control upon you, and you will no longer be free. But our founders believed that the true type of freedom involved doing what you ought to do. And they also believed that as far as freedom was concerned, in moving forward, that freedom required virtue. And the best type of government involved self-government and self-restraint. And that's why we as Americans and as Republicans believe in limited government. I believe in limited government, limited laws. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that you can do whatever you want. It's not anarchy either. Okay? But freedom requires virtue. Virtue requires faith. Faith requires freedom. Okay? Ad infinitum. It's a circular thing. Freedom requires virtue. Virtue requires faith. Faith requires freedom. Keep that in mind. Two types of freedom. True type of freedom, false type of freedom. Okay? Now, our founders, and I firmly believe that our revolution was divinely inspired. You look at the Great Awakening, which took place in the early 1740s, 1750s, and it's unequivocal that our founders were Christian. And what I would say is this: the Muslim faith would not produce America. It hasn't produced America anywhere else, or it would have. The Buddhist faith doesn't produce America. The Buddhism, just Hinduism, whatever, any other kind of religion does not produce the America that we have. And it comes back to that faith requires virtue, virtue requires faith, and freedom ad infinitum. So we keep coming back to that part. That's what we've got to have in America. We've got to have a proper understanding of separation of church and state. The true meaning as far as separation of church and state involved the state not having undue influence on the church, but they fully intended for the church to be the conscience of the state, just like they intended for the fourth estate, the press, to be the watchdog of the state and to report on things. And so, part of the problems that I believe that we face, we've got a lot of legislative issues that we've got to fix, but at the same time, we need more accountability to come from the fourth estate, from the press. We also need the church to step back up and to begin becoming the conscience of the state again, not to endorse candidates per se, but to step up and have a backbone on the issues and to talk about the issues like traditional marriage, like the right of a baby to have a voice. And we should be the voice of that baby. There was a month ago in the Oklahoma, and there was an op-ed piece from an animal rights group that they were standing at the Capitol. And they were like, we're here for animal rights, and we're here to give a voice to those who don't have a voice. Well, guess what? I'm not in favor of being cruel to animals. That makes sense, okay? But it doesn't mean that animals have more rights than we do. But guess what? Guess who else doesn't have a voice? It's that baby inside the womb. And you know what? That baby inside the womb would ultimately, what would their choice be? I think their choice would ultimately be to choose life. I mean, what would you guys have chosen? When you were in your mother's womb, what would you guys have chosen? Hopefully life, right? You like living now?
I don't know. Just today, I'm not quite sure.
Hopefully the bird inside out. You guys kind of get where I'm coming from. So all that being said, that's just a way of me to kind of begin talking with you guys about the issues that I feel are very important to us as a party. And what I want to do is kind of bridge from that now and just get you to think about a date. And that date is November the 12th of 2013. It's the second Tuesday this November. And what we're going to do, we have a goal and an objective of serving coffee and cookies in every single precinct in Oklahoma, with the goal of discussing conservatism and with the goal of discussing how people can get positively involved in their government. There's a lot of Tea Party energy out there that doesn't know how to get engaged. They still watch The Blaze. They still watch Fox News. They're sending out emails. They know all these different things that they're doing. Showing up to meetings, that's all very important. But how do you get people elected? Okay? That's what's important. That's what we've got to do, and we've got to get people elected the right way. We've got to get people elected with a grassroots basis. We've got to get people elected that are accountable to the people that elect them. You know, the guys that just strictly run using direct mail and commercials and things of that nature, radio ads that aren't getting out, those are the people that are making the ivory tower decisions. But the guys that are going out there that are utilizing a grassroots approach to getting elected, those are the guys that traditionally are going to stay accountable to the people. Okay? And so that's the kind of, if we can begin to build our grassroots back up, rebuild our precincts, and get them to function again and show people how they can have a positive impact, not only on state, House races and state Senate races and federal races and presidential races. That's the stuff that gets all the praise and all the glory. But the stuff that the government that affects us the most and most often is our local government, right? Okay? And, our school boards and our municipal races are incredibly important. Our county races are incredibly important as well. And so, based upon that, we've got to figure out a way to get good people elected to school boards. We need school board members to stand up, to have a backbone. We were talking briefly, Shannon, about Common Core. Now, I realize that curriculum is a very hot issue, but I'm going to set forth an issue that I think is even more important than curriculum right now, because ultimately it doesn't matter what we teach in the school if we don't have discipline in the classroom. If that teacher can't get the kids to sit down and behave and pay attention enough, if that teacher can't make that happen, the curriculum doesn't matter. Well, what's the biggest reason why our teachers don't have discipline in the classroom? Well, they know, and they're not being backed by their administrators and their school boards, because the second that a parent comes up to the school and starts waving their finger saying, I'm going to file a lawsuit against you because you did this to my kid, when they probably disciplined the kid for the right reason, the school board and the administrators are backing off. They don't have a backbone. Why don't they have a backbone? They're scared of getting sued. Okay? So we've got to have people that will step up, exhibit some backbone on our school boards, back our teachers, so that they in turn can have control in the classroom again. Then we can begin to focus on curriculum. Well, guess what? Here's why things are important. And this is why it's important to be a Republican. We passed out of the House and the Senate 4 years ago a bill that would have given protection to our administrators and school boards and teachers from that type of behavior, and Brad Henry vetoed it. Vetoed it. It's not there. We don't have that protection like we need it right now.
But his wife was a teacher.
I know it.
I don't know who Brad Henry is.
Brad Henry was our former Democratic governor before Mary Fallon.
People don't know who he is.
That's right. So, an exhibition of very poor leadership, in my opinion. But that being said, where I'm coming from and what I'm trying to say is that's an example of how local government can have a positive impact upon your community. Okay? Your municipal races, the city council races, incredibly important. And I can tell you, I live in Lexington, Oklahoma. We had a city manager that was there for 16 years. He did an outstanding job for his first 6 years. But his final 10 years, he was terrible. And I believe, I can't prove it at this point, but I believe the man was on the take. Because our city services started suffering like you would not imagine. Lexington's a member of the Oklahoma Municipal Power Authority, meaning that they are able to basically buy electricity from OG&E and other sources, and then they resell it. We don't have a tax base, and so based upon that, the revenues that were coming in, which were substantial, but the revenues that were coming in from that were being misused. And the guy made $60,000 a year, yet he lived in about a house that was worth about $250,000, and he drove a motor coach that was worth about $450,000. ATVs, I mean, just his lifestyle did not match up with his income, and the man does not gamble, and he did not receive an inheritance. So you go figure. And then our electricity was, we would have about 4 or 5 brownouts per year, or not per year, per month. I lost a couple of computer monitors. You know, we live in a 5-year-old house, and we were already having to replace the front panel of the dishwasher and the front panel on the stove, and it was a nightmare from that. We also had issues with our washer and dryer because of the electrical circuits. Couldn't get the city council to do anything, but guess what? A band of citizens got together and we ran the guy off. And now things are back to function again. The grass is getting mowed and the city properties and things of that nature. So your city government makes a big difference too. And that's what we want to do at Coffee, Cookies, and Conservatism is we want to move forth, and we want to talk to people about, all right guys, this is involvement at the precinct level. You need to band together and start paying attention. And you need to start going to city council meetings. You need to start going to school board meetings and paying attention. You know what? If there's 12 people in your precinct, if one of you will go once a month, you only have to go once a month. And that person that goes can write a summary of notes and let everybody else know what's happening, what decisions are being made. And guess what? When they know that they're being watched, they're going to make better decisions. When they know that they're being backed, they're going to make better decisions. And you're going to have influence. If you want to change a legislator's behavior, you show up at a town hall meeting and you have a point that you want to make. You make your point very tactfully and in a way in which that individual, you know, that's not negative toward that individual, but that may take issue with how they voted or something like that. And then you have 50 people stand behind you and stand up and give a standing ovation. That's going to have an impact upon that individual. They're going to listen to you because it's all about numbers. If you can produce numbers, our elected officials listen. Proven fact. Phone calls to their office that are tactful and polite work. Okay? Tom was talking about at our meeting in Muskogee about the internet tax. Congressman Mullen is weighing out the options on that. He needs to hear from you all about that. And that it's a bad idea. Any type of tax, in my opinion, is a bad idea because we're overtaxed now. They're not spending the revenues that they're getting now appropriately. There's too much waste. And so, you know what? I'm all about core government services. I don't want to eliminate that for anybody. But what defines core? You know, that's a big question. Number one, but number two, let's eliminate the fraud and the waste and the corruption that's out there first before you go to asking me to pull another dollar out of my pocket. Okay? That's where I'm at. And we need to make our government limited and refined. And you know, if anybody asks me for someone that I look to as a model of republicanism, a lot of people talk about Ronald Reagan. I love Ronald Reagan. He put his pants on one leg at a time, just like I do. You know what? When Ronald Reagan woke up in the morning, he had bad breath. So do I. My wife can attest to that. Okay? He was not a god. Sometimes we kind of tend to make him that way. But somebody I really admire is Calvin Coolidge. And you look at Calvin Coolidge and what he did in the 20s and the role that he had in creating the Roaring 20s and the wonderful economy that we had during that time frame. Calvin Coolidge is the main reason of that. And guess what he did? He cut government spending, he cut tax rates, and in so doing, in cutting those tax rates and that government spending, that put more money into the economy. And in putting more money into the economy, our economy grew. Because business is always going to spend that dollar more efficiently than the government is. Okay? So let's come back to, I've tried to make the case here briefly for why we've got to rebuild our precincts And what we're going to begin to do about it, number one, we start on November 12th with coffee, cookies, and conservatism. We want coffee and cookies to be served in every precinct in Oklahoma with the goal of discussing conservatism and positive engagement in government. From there, what we want to do is we want to look at in January and February, we're going to put on candidate schools in which we show our candidates how they can stretch a dollar, how they can raise money, how they can target a race, all this kind of stuff. I'm a firm believer that we need to elect the people to office that know how to stretch a dollar. You know, Congressman Langford is a campaign. I worked on his campaign as an advisor to it. Congressman Langford was outspent 7-1 in his first congressional race. When you look at the top two guys as far as raising money, Congressman Langford was outspent 7-1. But here's his strength, and here's what he was able to do and what he was able to accomplish. If you look at the other 6 or 7 candidates that were in that race, James Langford had double the number of donors of all those others combined. Okay? It's about the sustaining donor. I don't like calling people a small donor, but it's about the sustaining donor. The guy that gives $10 and $20 to you, that guy becomes an advocate. That individual is worth 20 votes to a campaign. And so what I want to do is I want to go out and show, guys, you can get involved. If you're going to run for county commissioner and your opponent has $50,000, I think you can beat him on 12-5 if you'll follow the right formula. If you'll get out there and you'll put forth a grassroots campaign and have lots of small donors, as far as that's concerned, then in doing that, you can put forth a good race. Well, guess what? We've got to get out there and we've got to do as much as possible and get as many people on the ballot as possible, because we've got Mary Fallon at the top of the ticket with a 70+ approval rating. We've got Jim Inhofe at the top of the ticket with a 70+ approval rating. We've got really good state government leaders that are doing a really good job. Look at the job that they have done in the wake of the tornadoes. And I'm doing a pretty good dancing act here too.
He's going to shut that door.
No, he's not. He's not. But all that being said, we're going to put forth a really strong ticket, okay? And if we can have people at the bottom of the ticket, then what that's going to translate into is better government. Better government at the county level, because district attorney is incredibly important to us. And the guy that says he's a conservative Democrat, you should go ahead and vote for me, poppycock. Don't do it. Here's why. Look at Tom DeLay and the liberal district attorney down there that prosecuted him for no reason and ran him out of office. Tom DeLay was a good conservative. He made some poor personal decisions, but they were not worthy of indictment. And he was run out of office by a liberal district attorney in Austin, Texas. County sheriff. How does Obama plan to implement gun control? I know that we've got an open carry in here. How does Obama plan to implement that? Through local law enforcement. You don't want a Democratic sheriff, because the Democratic sheriff's going to march in lockstep with his party regardless of what he says, because his job security will depend upon it. The Republican, we can give him cover. And so we've got to have Republican district attorneys and Republican sheriffs. We've got to have Republican county commissioners, because this is all about how we govern and governing efficiently. And we need good Republicans in there, because it's more about roads and bridges. Look at your libraries. Oklahoma County had a major issue in which at their local library, their downtown Oklahoma City, the homosexual people wanted to put pro-homosexual books in the 3- and 4-year-old section to begin indoctrinating them. I'm against that, totally. To begin indoctrinating them on that. The book board that made the decision was appointed by the county commissioners. And they were able to get that overturned and able to keep that from happening. But if we wouldn't have had good county commissioners there, that wouldn't have taken place. And so there's a ton of issues out there why county courthouse races are incredibly important to us, and why we need to get people recruited and plugged in, and then we'll show them how to run campaigns to where they don't have to raise the most amount of money. I believe if you can stay within a 4-to-1 margin, that you can run a competitive race. And so you got somebody that's, like I say, at 50. I think if you can go raise 12.5 in small dollar contributions with a high number of donors, $10, $20 at a time, then you can win. The problem is it takes a lot of work. James Langford, in order to do that, we did 135 meet and greets. 135. And Coffee, Cookies, and Conservatism is patterned after this. We would call people up that we knew that were supporters, and we'd say, hey, would you mind opening up your home and giving us your Christmas card list? We're going to send out some invitations for you. All we need you to do is put on a pot of coffee and bake some cookies. Don't be Martha Stewart. Don't be Paula Dean. Just put on some cookies. Now, yes, the ladies always clean their house extra special. That's what my wife does too. I'm trying to get a rise out of you. You're not participating.
I'm not smiling.
Huh? But you know how it is.
I'm right there and throw all the clothes in the dryer.
Yeah. You know, the baseboards get dusted and, you know, all that crazy. If I want the house to really clean, spick and span, I just invite somebody over. My wife goes crazy.
And then you dust the baseboards, don't you?
Yes, I do. I can vouch for that. And I do know how to run the dishwasher. All right? Not very often, but I do.
Well, I tell you, I know I don't mean to be, but yeah, I guess I do mean to butt.
Yeah, but
Make a point. This county, I'm proud of Cherokee County. You got Brian Keister, I've never kept his name, in as a district attorney, and they had a horrible, they had a string of horrible district attorneys. Richard Gray was the crookedest thing on this earth. He was and I know, I had a brother that was, I know how my brother got out of hitting a fireman. That's my brother, not me, so whatever. But I know how he got out of it, and it was all in the pocket of your district attorney, Richard Gray, when you had him here. And Brian's not that type of guy.
Gray's planning on running again.
He is? Well, let me tell you what, you gotta keep him out. He is crooked. He is crooked. I got it from my own brother, and I told him never hit a fireman. hit a policeman, don't hit a fireman or something. It was a fire at my dad's house, and they were letting it burn down or something, and my brother was just out of it. He was out of it, is what happened. But still, he got charged. But he paid his way out and got nothing out of it, because Richard Gray is a crooked politician. Don't let this happen to you. I mean, you've got a great one now, and everybody who is proud of he does Wagner, Cherokee, Adair, Sequoia, I think.
Wow.
He does, yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, Cherokee County is one of the people that have really done what you're saying. They actually did. They fought for Richard, Brian Keister.
Yeah, Ryan Keister.
Keister.
Well,
Okay, I just have to jump in right here because I cannot keep my mouth shut.
Then you leave.
Well,
No,
hold on.
I just want to say something.
Yeah, go right ahead. Go right
Pam.
ahead.
Okay.
I am a registered independent
Yep.
for some of the very reasons that you were just talking about.
Okay.
Financially, fiscally, I am a Republican.
Right.
Morally and socially, I am a Democrat.
Okay.
I believe in equality of the sexes.
Okay.
I believe in equal pay for equal jobs, whether
Sure.
you're a man, a woman, a monkey, whatever. If you're
Right.
doing the same job as somebody else, you should get paid the same
Right.
amount. I also believe that your party has done a horrible job of something that I'm going to bring up. And I believe the Democratic Party has done a horrible job of something that I'm going to bring up. I believe that if either party would bring this issue along, and you're going this afternoon to some place where there's one of the best VA hospitals in this country, that's Muskogee.
Right.
If some party does not start treating our veterans with the respect that they deserve
Right.
and the honor that they deserve, then I do not believe either party needs to be elected.
Okay.
because that is something that I
Let me
feel,
kind of take
and I
some of
think a
those.
lot of other
Right.
feel,
Right.
others feel very strongly about this.
Right.
Veterans have put their lives on the line
Right.
for this country. They've done what this country has asked them to do.
Right.
They've come home, they can't get jobs, they can't get the medical care that they need. They're shunned, on and on and on and on, especially true with the Vietnam vets.
Okay.
And I think, that, you want to address that issue?
Yeah, let's just take it and let's go line by line. What did you say first? Let's just go.
Why I'm an independent?
No, let's go through, okay.
Fiscally concerned, fiscal government out the rest of my life.
Sure.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And that's what we're trying to do. We're not, I mean, it's not a perfect party, it doesn't march in lockstep. We're not cyclones. But at the same time, what I want you to understand is this. Since Eisenhower, Republicans have had complete control of the House, Senate, and the executive branch for 2 years. 2 years. Now, Democrats have had complete control for a lot more than that. I forget what the number is, but it's probably at least half of that period of time. We've had split control probably 45% of the time. Okay? So, if we want to go and we want to start blaming Republicans about that, number one, you can't control much when you don't have control. And that's, I come back to Oklahoma. Oklahoma's been in state for 107 years. We've had complete control as Republicans for 4. Democrats have had complete control, not even split control, but complete control for 94% of our statehood. So you look at the fact that we've got underfunded pensions, we've got poor bridges, we've got all this, you talk about the VA system is administered through our state. You look at that fact and you want to blame somebody, you blame the Democrats because they're the ones that are in control that made all these stupid, poor decisions that we're having to deal with. And it's going to take Republicans at least 10 years in order to get that straightened out. It can't happen overnight. There's too much to do and too much to take care of, and you've got to prioritize. Now, they've begun doing that and moving in the right direction. Do I wish they would be bolder? Absolutely. They should be bolder. But all the more reason for us to get involved and us to stand up to them and not just criticize them, but stand up and say, this is how I think you should do it, and I'm going to back you, and do it in a positive way. We've got to back our leaders in a positive way and let them know we've got their back. Because what happens a lot of times is all we do is we pick up the phone and we call and we gripe, but then we don't put anything behind the gripes. And so that's all that they hear. Now those phone calls make a difference, but griping or talking to them and expressing your concern in a tactful way, but then showing up and helping them, that's how you influence them, and that's how you help move things forward. So that's how we're going to respond to veterans, and what we do as veterans is it's going to take a little bit of time. But also, I would challenge you to look at how George Bush is treating our veterans. I don't agree with a lot of things that George Bush has done, but one thing you can say about him is anytime he's got free time and spare time, he is going to our VA hospitals without pomp and circumstance, without a photographer and making a big issue of it. He's going there and he's paying tribute to them, and you can find out about it. I mean, you can kind of Google it and find out. There will be articles here and there about what he does, but he is very active in the Wounded Warrior Program. He just had a huge cross-country bike ride that was a fundraiser for the Wounded Warrior Program. So I think that Republicans in nature, number one, they support the military far and above anybody. You look at the fact that Jim Inhofe sits on the Armed Services Committee, and the fact that every 5 or 6 weeks he is flying somewhere to go visit our soldiers. He's not coming home. He's flying to Afghanistan. He's flying to Iraq. He's flying to Africa and all these other places because he wants to meet our troops. And he is revered and he is loved by our troops. Bar none. He does a wonderful job. And our Senate respects him for that. And I respect him for that. You look at the fact that Congressman Cole, he's my congressman. I don't agree with everything Tom Cole does, but I do agree with him on about 70 to 80% of the issues. Okay? Now there's a pretty wide divide on those other 20%, but still, the best Democrat I agree with is about 30 or 40. Okay? But that's the thing is that we've got to realize as Republicans is most of the time it is with politics, in anything, you end up voting for the lesser of two evils. Absolutely, you do. That's life. Sometimes circumstances aren't such that you can't have the purest choice. You can't get the whole loaf all the time, but you can get the whole loaf by one slice at a time. And that's kind of how we have to look at this whole thing is incremental in its process. and how we get there and how we need to be. Yes, I think we need to be back on the gold standard, but we can't just go cold turkey from where we are with printing the printing presses and things of that nature back to that. There's too much shock. There's got to be some way to transition back away from where we are all the way over to the other, or we lose control in the process because of the shock associated with it. That's exactly what the Democrats want us to do, because the chaos that ensues from that, that's how you institute a socialist state, is through chaos. Now, let's go in and let's address the traditional marriage thing. I'm not in favor of disenfranchising anyone. But when you look at the issues that they raise on equal treatment of the sexes and all this stuff, it's not about that. It's about shoving down my throat what they do in the bedroom. I don't care what they do in the bedroom. They need to keep it to themselves and quit trying to shove it down my throat and quit trying to stick it in a 3- and 4-year-old library section to where it's not appropriate to begin talking to them about, because the kids don't even understand what's being addressed. And so, really, when you look at the activists that are involved with this, it is about destroying marriage. It's what it's about. They want to destroy marriage to where there's nothing there, because ultimately this whole thing is about creating chaos. You take away gun control, crime goes up. Chaos. You overspend federally to the point that we become bankrupt. Chaos. You destroy marriage and destroy the family. Chaos. And ultimately, once you've created chaos, that's the Alinsky plan for how you institute socialism and communism and tyrannical control over society. It's exactly what they use in Eastern Europe. And that's exactly what the Democrats are trying to do. So the reason you need to be a Republican is Republicans are going to stand up for individual rights. They're going to stand up for limited government and all those other things, and they're not going to try to force-feed things down. Now, I'll stand up and I will disagree with you. Hold on just a second. I'll disagree with you on stuff, but I'm not going to try to cram it down your throat. I'm going to tell you what I believe. And I believe in having a dialogue with you, because that's what makes us stronger. Iron sharpens iron just as a man sharpens a man. That's in Proverbs. Woman sharpens man, vice versa. The interaction that we have as people involve that. Okay? So that's why I believe you need to be a Republican, because, number one, as an independent, you're disenfranchised. You can't vote in the primaries. I don't feel that you should be able to vote in the primaries. Just because of the fact that, I'm not going and telling the Democrats what they need to do. They shouldn't be able to, I'm a Baptist. I shouldn't be able to go to the Church of Christ and tell them who their preacher should be. They shouldn't be able to come in and tell, the organizations that you're a member of should be controlled by the members. And as an independent, you're disenfranchised. And what I would urge you to do is pick a party to begin to get plugged into. And what I'm going to tell you is, by the fact that you're here, you're more Republican than you realize. Now,
No, I just like the garlic rolls.
well, I'm selling it.
Let me tell you something. You mentioned VA. And you mentioned VA. 6 months ago, I went up to the VA hospital, and I saw them putting these things over the parking lot. And I thought, what in the heck is that? I went in and I asked them, what are they putting up there? They said, well, that's covered. They're covering all the parking lots, and they're putting solar panels on the parking lots. And I said, what in the world are they doing that for? And they couldn't tell me or anything, because they just tell me.
Right.
And so I called around, and I found out, and I called my congressman, Mark Raymond. I called in. Well, what they do is they said the Obama. This is an Obama push, and they're actually spending money that could go for VA hospital, VA doctors, VA nurses to treat and help our veterans, and putting solar panels, covered parking with solar panels on. Over up there.
Well,
they're
ridiculous.
Stealing the money that should go to the house.
That's ridiculous.
To the deal. So I'm telling you, that is the the Democrat plan right there, and it's filtered right into my hometown, Muskogee. And I tell you, you go up there and look, see the thing, you'll see it all there. It's magnificent, but it's not helping one veteran. It's not put one bandage. It's not helping one veteran whatsoever. Yeah, they said, well, it'll save money on electricity. That's baloney.
My point just was, as far as the
Good.
veterans situation goes, I believe that whichever party becomes the biggest cheerleader of the veterans is going to win a lot of votes.
No, I agree. But I guess what I'm trying to say to you is,
Let's get that money to the veteran. Let's get that thing down to the veteran.
Oh, I agree. I agree 100% with what you're
Don't
saying.
build patches.
But I don't see a party.
Don't build palaces because they want to sit there and be green.
But who's the people that are in power right now?
I don't see a party out there, in my eyes, that are the real cheerleaders for the veterans.
Man, I beg to differ with you.
More than
I
any other
don't know what else I can
car.
say there. I mean, this is my final point, is the people, the Democrats that are in power now, those are the people that were leading the anti-war demonstrations against those Vietnam veterans you were just talking about. Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton,
Well,
you know, the
I'm
weather
a peacenik,
underground.
so I mean, as far as that's concerned, I'm all against war, but I'm not all against our warriors.
Right.
There's a distinction.
There's a big difference
There's a
there.
distinction.
They sacrifice their lives, they're
Right.
everything.
But that's what I'm saying is, those people, but they weren't, it wasn't just the fact that they were against the war, they were spitting on our soldiers, is what I'm talking about. And you look at the Weather Underground and Bernadine Dorn, and you look at William Hayes, who is Obama's main and earliest supporters from when he was in Chicago, they were right in the middle of all of that. So there's no comparison as far as I'm concerned, as far as who's supportive of our troops and who's not. It's bar none. It's 90% Republican and barely 10% Democrat.
I'm just talking about cheerleading. But anyway,
Yeah,
that's
me
neither
too.
here nor there. She had
Let's
her
go
hand
here.
up.
Go.
Well, you mentioned individual rights, and that's something Republicans
Right.
stand for.
Sure.
Well, yes, that's what they say they stand for, and that's why I'm in this party, because that's where I
Right.
align with. But when we go, and I abhor same-sex marriage and the whole homosexual agenda. But to say we're for individual rights, and then we do the exact opposite when this certain set of people want something, and we
Okay.
stand against it, that's not for individual rights. If we were to really be for individual rights,
But here's
our
what
party
happens.
would say,
Right.
we agree that you guys can do whatever you want in your bedroom, and we need to be out of it.
Well, they
And
already
completely.
are doing whatever they want in their bedroom.
Yeah, but we
They're just
shouldn't be
trying to-
taking a
we're
stand
trying
for
to-
it
no,
against
I
it.
totally disagree with you. Here's why. Their objective is to destroy marriage, because once we open Pandora's box and we allow for marriage to be redefined, then not only can two people be, two men be married or two women be married, but three men can be married. Or four men can be married. Or you can marry four.
The polygamists are getting cheated here.
Exactly.
They're actually getting
Actually.
cheated.
And so-
Well, that's why marriage shouldn't be involved in the government whatsoever. In neither party should have any involvement with it, because then it would be down at the church section.
I'm gonna take
Let me finish.
something over what she said.
Let me ask you a question. Where are you going to stop? There are already 4 lawsuits coming out of the northeast part of the country saying that polygamy is supposed to be legal. There's a lawsuit pending in New York about the guys, what's the man, boy?
Yeah, North American
Legalize
NAMBLA.
that. Now, I'm going to ask you the question, where do you stop?
Yeah.
One man, one woman is married. God put it that way. I'm not going to put it that way. Right.
Okay, I'm gonna put something in perspective for all of these.
Yeah, so far.
I worked in a company
That
that was a majority women, and the Republican Party needs to understand something.
Mhm.
When we hammer on abortion and when we hammer on marriage, you are turning those women off and you are losing. What percentage did we lose in the last election of the female vote? Let me finish.
No, that's fine.
How I feel personally is one thing, but you get hammered and you get put in a corner.
Mhm.
And really, what she's saying in a way, abortion and marriage, those things are things that maybe we should be concentrating on, fiscal policy and things. And you need to understand, you are turning women off when you hammer on that. Not that I disagree with it.
Right.
Yep, exactly.
But if you want the women to vote, and I heard Paul Harvey say once 15 years ago, as long as the Republicans hammer on abortion, they will lose elections. That came out of Paul Harvey's mouth.
Well,
And you can talk about it, but don't get pushed in a corner, and the Democrats
I'm not
love
getting
it.
pushed in a corner.
Well, the Democrats love to push us.
We talk about the woman's right to choose. What about that baby's right to life?
Well, I totally agree
And-
with you,
and
but
that's not, well, I'm not going to
take it
drop
off the top of your list,
I'm not
or you
going
are
to.
going to lose the women's
it.
vote.
If we lose, then we lose.
But you can be
No, we're going to
dead.
take a principled stand
Right.
on that stuff, and we are right on it.
I'm not saying you're not, but I'm
Well,
saying when you
I'm not gonna
hammer
drop
on
it.
it,
I disagree with
you
you.
are losing the female vote. I
Well,
can
that's
tell you
their
I
fault,
work
not
with
mine.
it. I agree, but
That's
you can
their
be
fault,
dead
not
right
mine.
or wrong.
Well, I mean,
I'm just
that,
making
such
a
is,
point.
such
I'm
is
not
how
taking
the,
you on
no,
the
I understand,
argument.
Pam, that's where I'm
I'm
coming
giving
from,
you
is what I'm
perspective.
telling you is,
Right, that's
we've
what I
got to
was trying to
stand
get
upon
at.
our principle, and we've got to be the party of life.
But it is
And-
still a law. The Supreme
No,
Court has spoken.
it's not a law, it was a decision, it's
But
not
they
a
have
law.
spoken.
It's not a law. They legislated from the bench, which was wrong, and that's got to be addressed. It's not a law. It was not passed as a law. It was not passed as a constitutional amendment. It was passed, it was a decision that is now being treated as a law, Roe versus
Well, I
Wade.
am not for
And that's-
abortion, and
right.
I'm not for gay marriage.
Right.
But I think that if we want to win as a party, we need to concentrate
Well,
on
I
smaller
disagree with you, and
government.
here's why. Here's why. Scott Walker is a conservative's conservative, and he comes from probably the third most liberal state in our country, Wisconsin. Scott Walker would fit in just fine down here. He is pro-life, he is pro-traditional marriage, he is an evangelical Christian, he fits all those categories, and he is unapologetic about that fact. And he was elected governor in Wisconsin, and he survived a recall because the unions hate him because he stood up to them. And he is a man among men up there, and we don't have to change our message. We need to improve the delivery of our message.
But I think he won because he stood up against the unions.
That's
Although
one
these
reason.
other things
Right.
came into play, but
Right.
his strong suit was he stood up against unions, and that's government.
Yep. That's where the limited government comes into.
Yes.
Just where, like, just where there's a distinction between supporting the war versus supporting our soldiers.
Right?
There can be a distinction between supporting gay rights and these things. We shouldn't even make those policy issues for our party.
Right.
We can speak on them apologetically
Yep.
from a personal perspective without trying to use our
But if we
authority or our
don't,
government.
if we don't, the Democrats are doing those guys. And in that setting, it's a vacuum. And we've got to step forward and we've got to engage people on the issues because we step back from it. And then it's basically like we vacated the battlefield.
But Pam's right when she says that shouldn't be the main focus of our fight.
Well, it's a
When we're
main
fighting that
focus.
fight, we're losing on all the fiscal side of things and all the limited government side of things. In a lot of these places, we're actually increasing government because of the things we're trying to push as a party because of our personal beliefs.
Yep.
I mean, our state legislature, the Republicans, we control it, and yet our budget's still going like this. A lot of that comes from, some of it's inflationary issues, some of it's more strings coming from federal spending where we have to increase the
Well,
budget funds.
fine, you want to cut government spending, cut the federal funding of abortions.
Well, here,
for it.
I
It's not-
take issue with you saying that you're for individual rights.
Right.
When you're not equally for the rights of a gay person as you are a
The
pro-choice.
gay-
I mean, if you're for individual rights, then you're saying that that individual gets to make their own
We have to
decisions,
make
correct?
we have to make the distinction. That's why I brought this up. There's a true type of liberty and there's a false type of liberty. The true type of liberty says I do what I ought to do with self-restraint. And self-restraint is the best one. The false type of liberty is the selfish type of liberty that says I can do whatever I want to do. Because in that setting, what you do is you end up falling into something and making decisions that ultimately will enslave you and entrap you. And that's why I say, this is not about libertarianism in which everything goes. And it's not about just that. Legalizing drugs is a panacea. It destroys the mind. It is not the right thing to do. It's not the right way to go. That's not about individual rights. That's about selfish rights. And that's about destroying people and their minds and their families and destroying societies. It's proven that that's the case. It's also, J.D. Unwin was an
And I would make
anthropologist.
that we do as much harm in our drug war without actually winning the war as we do by having it.
Well,
Look at senators in a recent meeting were talking about how we've got a similar population to Kansas, but we have 5 times the number of people, mostly from nonviolent drug offenses.
look at
We're
what's
tearing apart
happened in
families and
Amsterdam with drug legalization. Look at what happened.
stuff. I mean, I'm opposed to doing drugs. I tell everybody, don't
Me
do
too,
it.
it's stupid, but that's what I'm saying. You have legalized drugs in Holland, and they're about to destroy their society.
Have you been to Amsterdam?
Have I been? No, personally, no.
I have been,
Okay.
and I can speak of it firsthand knowledge.
So can I.
I have too, and I've seen on many times, I lived in Europe.
Having said that, you do realize that marijuana is the #1 cash crop you've got here in Oklahoma.
So,
You do realize that?
I don't care.
No, but you do realize that.
It's not moral.
Not anymore, it's bad.
Oh, now it's
Yeah.
meth. It used to be marijuana. I'm talking about cash crop.
Right.
I'm not talking about something that cooks. I'm talking about something that grows
I'll
out
tell
of
you
the
what,
ground.
if we're gonna help the drug war, or win in the drug war, we're gonna have to make people accountable. We're gonna have to stop giving them a check.
Right.
From the government that keeps them to where they can do anything they want.
Exactly. It's
I'm a
welfare.
worker, and the boy is a sweet little boy, he's 21 years old. He gets $766, and he's got a wife and a daughter, and a baby, little baby, and they get $766 in food stamps and WIC. What he does is he's got a guy, and they both live in an apartment house that I own, and they both work for me. This other guy brings him to work. He takes him over to the grocery store and pays him every month $100 worth of food every month to take him to work. They just go over there, he uses his card, you know, and gives the guy hauls the groceries up. I'm just saying, and this guy works. This is not a worst case scenario. So what we're doing is we're letting these people, we're giving them free rent, we're giving them free everything, just free food, we're giving them free medical, we're giving everything free to them, and that gives them time to do
Things that they really is a tangled mess.
And that's really, and that really is one thing that would help our drug war more than anything, because it would make those people responsible.
Good, great
We
point.
have one hand over here too.
Okay.
If you don't, there's some disagreement here, obviously, between
Sure.
like people's ideas and stuff. But I keep coming back to something that you had said earlier. You started this off with saying that liberty is doing what you ought to do, not what you want to do.
Right.
And that's the true kind of liberty you think should be. My question is, if liberty is doing what you ought to do, not what you want to do, what's fascism?
What's fascism?
Yeah, because if true liberty is doing what you ought to do, to me that's not liberty. Usually people say if free time would be liberty. Free time, you do what you want to do. So true liberty would truly be people can do what they want to do, not what they ought to do. Doing what you ought to do is not liberty.
Duty and morals would restrict
Yeah.
what you do with that
Doing-
liberty.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
doing-
the best restraint is self-restraint, and our founders were unequivocally Christian. Period, like what I said. And they were controlled by virtue. They were controlled by a relationship with Christ. They were controlled by the fact that they were a member of a church. And in doing that, and that's what our founders, Christianity is the only environment in which our United States could have been fostered. No other religion could have produced the fruits and bounty of liberty that we have. And also, I guess that's where I come back to, is it's very apparent the Bible's against drunkenness, it's against drugs, it's against all those things as far as that's concerned. Well, I won't go there, but we can take that up after this. But it's very apparent that we were not to give up control of our mind to anything that was foreign. That we should only be susceptible to God's Holy Spirit in our life, and that's the true restraint of where we go from, and that it doesn't contradict itself, and that's all. I mean, I'm stepping out of the political into more of the spiritual realm as far as that's concerned. But fascism, in my opinion, is more of a scenario in which you have basically government picking the winners as far as who the businesses are concerned. And so it's not that far removed from socialism from that vantage point. Yes, it's a way of controlling things. What I'm saying to you is, number one, our government there are certain things that the government needs to limit. We don't need to be in the business of promoting and allowing for the use of free drugs. It will destroy our society, period, bar none. And J.D. Unwin was an anthropologist that has gone back over the last 6,000 years. And so he studied, I think, 80 different religions. Look up J.D. Unwin for me. And he found a couple of scenarios as far as as far as his research. Every society that basically, you know, the Romans or whoever, they all had a core set of morals, strong values that helped them found their society and to kind of move to the top, so to speak. But then they always began to decline, number one, when they began to loosen their treatment of sex and their treatment of marriage and things like that. And you look at the Roman Empire and the fact that in the last days it was full. I mean, people were getting divorced, you know, multiple times. And you look at the fact that pedophilia was rampant in the Roman Empire at that point in time. Homosexuality was rampant at that point. No society can withstand the reduction of sexual morals. Period. We can't. It always leads us down the pathway to destruction. And our country will not stand up to it. And that's why it's so important. And that's why, you know what, it's not a social issue in my opinion, it's a moral issue. And if we want to limit drugs, Tom makes a great point that exactly what we do, number one, we get people off the dole, because you know what the best teacher is? It's experience. And a hungry stomach is a strong motivator. And the fact that we need to cut people off, and they need to go back to beginning to understand that if they want to fill their stomach, they need to go to work. And they need to become a productive member of society. And yeah, go ahead.
You're talking about Rome, and one of the things about Rome is through basic freedom at first.
Right.
They built a giant empire. Well, what happened is the treasuries got so full of money that they said, well, what do we do? I mean, I'm not kidding. They said, what do we do? And they said, okay, let's start giving a stipend to everybody that lives within the city of Rome. And so what happened is they started giving a stipend, and within 2 or 3 years, Rome's size like tripled because everybody came in wanting that money, or that stipend, or whatever you want to call it. And that is really, I mean, it's not the exact pinpoint of when they started going down, but that really hastened the fall of their country.
And then they started debasing their money.
They got free bread, which bread was a big thing back then, and free money, and it coming in. And so that left, and I'm not saying well, I'm not saying they didn't enjoy the free bread and free money, but what it did is it let people be idle and start doing crazy, things, and that really was one of the big things on Rome going down.
Yeah, economics was a lot of their things. They started clipping their own money. They started devaluing their own money. That's what we're doing the Federal Reserve now.
Right.
Yeah. But I truly believe that if you give people things for free, that gives them, they don't appreciate it.
But they vote Democratic.
Yeah, they vote Democratic, and they take the money from production.
They usually don't vote.
No, they do, because the Democrats drag them to the polls, because what they do is they go into the projects and they grab them out and they say, you come get on this bus and you follow us, and we're going to tell you how to vote and what to do, and then after you voted, we're going to take you to Luby's and we're going to give you free money. And that's exactly what they did in Chicago, that's exactly what they did in Houston, and that's exactly what they did in all the metropolitan areas. Those people do go vote. Yeah, or a free telephone. Exactly. So I just come back to that I believe that we can't loosen our moral standards. I'm not going to waver on that commitment. I believe it's a mistake to do so. We've got to continue to point out our differences between the Democrats. But above all, moving forward, what we have to look forward to is if Obama regains control. He is our adversary. Right here in this environment, we can agree to disagree. We're not going to agree on all the issues. But Obama's the guy that wants to cram things down our throat. And he's the one that will become a tyrant, and we have to defeat him. We have to come together in order to preserve the blessings of fruit and liberty that we enjoy. Because the Democrats, I wish that we would have made more progress at the state legislature. I would give them a B. But you know what? A B is a heck of a lot better than the decades worth of D's that we got from the Democrats.
We need to give them pats on the back where they deserve it. We also need to give them a little, hey.
Absolutely. You betcha. And I'm all for that. 102%.
We won't defeat Obama.
If you guys would do this, fill out the cards that we provided for you on the table. We'd love to know of your attendance and know about you. I want to harass you.
You do?
Yes.
Okay, here's,
Go ahead.
I just have a couple things to say, and then I have to go make brownies for Feed My Sheep tonight.
Okay.
Which is a 14-church ecumenical ministry here we have in
Awesome.
Townhall, which is an awesome thing.
That's great.
We get all the homeless together and we feed them. And my goal right now is to feed the hungry people in Cherokee County because I've never known what it was like to be hungry.
Right.
And I don't want to know, and it just kills me to see little kids hungry. I can't stand it. Anyway, having said that, your party has got to make a drastic change in that instead of putting out all this negative energy towards the Democrats and Obama and the way they're doing things, you would be so much more successful if you would do positive. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to make happen. Here's what the good side of this is, and on and on and on. Instead of attacking, lift people up.
Okay. That's where I was headed before I was interrupted with your question.
I'm going to go make brownies for Feed My
Thank you
Sheep.
for coming. Thanks. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. Okay, now,
Appreciate the dialogue.
and you can have this,
All right.
which is a daily devotional book.
Awesome.
And that tells you just a little bit about what we're doing.
Fair enough. Thank you.
And your Baptist church is involved in this.
Hey, that's great.
Hey, nice
That's
seeing
great.
you.
Okay, nice to see you.
All right.
Nice to meet everybody.
In closing, we've got to come together. Obama is negative, and I don't know what else to say about that. And I don't think anybody, all you have to do is look at the headlines in order to understand what he hopes to accomplish. I'm preaching to the choir, hopefully, when I say that. That's why we've got to come together. We've got to organize. I'm a big believer in grassroots government. I'm a big believer in grassroots organizing. November 12th, very important to us. Get all the precincts filled. Make sure that we have people, and we serve coffee and cookies in every precinct. Show those people. We'll have a curriculum that we're going to produce a DVD that can be shown. That'll have a message in there. We'll have some suggested curriculum about what you can talk about. But then we'll also go through and we will promote those candidate schools as well as the activist schools that can train people on what they can do to get involved. How do you throw a fundraiser? A lot of people don't know. It's easy. How do you make a phone call? What do you do when you go door knocking? Stuff like that. As county chairman, how can you do a robocall to the 4x4s every couple of months to get them to come to your meetings? Okay, because that's, another thing I think that we need is from our counties is we need a periodic meeting at a set time with a speaker to where people can begin to know where to come together and to congregate.
That's one thing Cherokee County, when Hampton was vice chair, they've been great about those years. They've had good regular meetings with great speakers coming in. And
right.
We're still doing
that. That's where, obviously, Pam, I've got my personal views about, where we need to be as far as women's rights and those types of issues, and I understand that you agree with me on that.
I do.
I believe that we've got to continue to articulate that, okay? And go from there.
Excuse me.
Sure.
8:30 in the morning.
I'll talk to you later. Go.
All right. I love it. I love it. Yes. It's great. It's been a great dialogue. I love it.
Well, she's friends with Pam. She's a good guy.
Yes, I agree.
I begin to change my, I'm not so sure.
No, she's fine. I thank you for inviting me. I don't mind it at all. Not at all. If you guys would fill out your cards, just let us know that you're here. And what I want to ask you to do is just consider one thing. We have to have funds in order to develop resources to help our counties. Okay, coming out and doing this type of stuff that costs money. We're obviously very conscientious of what we try to spend and things of that nature. But it's like a lady in Hugo told me. She said, "What are you doing? We're the poorest county in Oklahoma. What are you doing here asking me for money? You just need to go to James Langford and get $200,000 from him because you're such good friends with him." And the problem with that is, if I take $200,000 from James Langford, rightfully so, he's going to expect $200,000 worth of effort from me on his behalf. I don't want to be beholden to him in that regard, especially if he is to, if he has a primary opponent. I'm not supposed to take a position in a primary. I don't believe in taking a position in a primary. And so based upon that, I'm a big believer, we need sustaining donors. We need people to come alongside, and what I'm just asking you to do, would you consider becoming a Minuteman and contributing $8.25 to the party? Right now, we have about 70. Actually, probably more than that after Muskogee. We're probably up above 80 now. But it's my goal that by year end, we have that up above 900. Okay? And to do that, because the more we do to broaden our base, to broaden our donor base, the less, you know, I don't want to be dependent upon Oklahoma City and Tulsa to support what we do.
Yeah, the 825 is the.
825 is the amount. And it's just under 100. It's
And
like
we have one in
99.
Muskogee that's phenomenally successful.
Yeah, we're looking at actually organizing a local one as well.
Yeah, that would be good too, and we would encourage that. So anyway, I will just close with that, and if you guys have additional questions or want to have additional dialogue, you know, we're here for a little while longer here this afternoon. I'd love to continue that, but thank you for coming, and thank you for allowing me to deal with all that. It's a great meeting room, just a little few distractions, but oh yes, gotta admit this. This is something that we're going around. We think it does a good job of kind of getting the message across. It's a bumper sticker, and it just tells the Democrats what they need to do. I should have got that out for your friend. You need to go put that on her car.
I will.
Okay. But they are for sale 1 for $3 and 2 for $5. And in Hugo, Oklahoma, we sold about 100. They just love them. I mean, they ate them up. They were trying to figure out how they can make them into a billboard. And so, anyway, we'll see how far that one gets. The last I had somebody check commercially, there weren't any available in Choctaw County, but they were also going to work trying to figure out what they could do to put them on 4x8 plywoods.
Yeah, we've got a great Cherokee down there, Carol Bowman.
Yeah, Carol does a great job.
Great.
She really does. So anyway, if you guys like one of these, just if you don't mind, just be sure and leave us your card on the way out, so that we have her. We'd like to know who all attended, and if you can help us out by becoming a Minuteman, we would greatly appreciate it. Yeah, you bet, right now, for sure.
How much were they again?
1 for $3 and 2 for $5.
2 for 5, okay.
Yeah. So thanks, guys.
Okay, and I don't mean to give you a bad time, but I really wish we would concentrate on the female vote, and too much of it comes from, like I say, I totally agree with you. I'm just looking for ways to get votes, and it does turn women off.
I think when we get in and we're able to focus on the core issue, actually, when you look at it, there are more voters now that are pro-life than pro-choice.
And probably so, but in a national level, at a national thing, it just does not resonate with women. Smaller government, what you can do, and it just, I'm looking to pick up the female vote.
I see that as more of a government intrusion. It's there, and yes, females represent 53% of the registered voters. That's an exact number nationally for us. But that being said, number one, what happens with an abortion? Number one, obviously one person loses their life, but another person gets more.
She's got to go.
Yeah.
I've done it.
What do you need?
What are you doing with the gun on?
I open carry everywhere I go.
Well, I have a right to, but you know how you're turning people to? I don't even want to discuss it. I have an open carry too, and I certainly don't go into a restaurant packing each. Good Lord. Anyway.
You're right about it, VA.
As far as
Yeah, I started with VA.
if you do a survey,
I used to go every 2 months. I came here 6 months, now it's every 9 months. I haven't had the same doctor.
There's no consistency here.
Well, I'm not saying that, I'm not.
I mean, but
part of it
more
is also that we
it's a mental, it's almost like a
show the meat.
Well, when I was in Greenville, they used to say, neck,
It's fine.
here they don't okay, they just do blood pressure. And they asked if
No, I understand, and that's why I'm saying
and they don't do it.
It's not my primary issue, limited government.
I was rusty, so I
What's
got
gonna kill us is the discourse.
supplement medicine.
And that's what we need to concentrate on.
And I am.
Oh, yeah.
And I do.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I totally.
I don't like this. Let's go to Walmart and get those magnets that go on the magnet.
You stick it on the magnet and then you-
Go on in,
And you pull it off there, you want
Or switch after the hit or whatever. I didn't even know. I might come up to see you. I can sit in on the meeting, so I need to come up and see you next time you have a meeting. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that would look good. That'd be pretty good. That would look good. Very good friend, Jerry. Hey, Jerry, we do sign their, we sign their.
Thank you, sir. It tends to stay.
Thank you, sir. I do all that they can, 100%.
I mean, you have ideas, really voted like campaigns.
Well, and don't avoid it, just don't
Or
put
if
it
we
at the top
drop
of the
it.
agenda. I'm just saying.
I like this guy a lot, but I'm with you on the deal.
Yeah, it does. I work with hundreds of women and I'm telling you,
So,
it's not how I believe.
for whatever reason, this is the first time it's really come up.
Yeah.
Well,
With me, as I'm going around.
maybe no one's got to bring it up.
Maybe so.
You know, a lot of
but-
people haven't worked in an office with hundreds of women, so I have some perspective.
Yeah,
I think a lot of what you're saying goes back to the, even the messaging the RNC's done with the research and things that they've done as far as how we not give up our principles, but just focus on different aspects so we can bring in those.
takes about 5 minutes to cut them and we time to do them.
How I feel personally, I totally that.
Well, no, we're pretty much in agreement on all everything, but I'm like you, Pam, when you bring it up too much, it just turns some people really off. And I believe like you do too. Yeah.
And we have to have them, we can be dead right.
Yeah.
But if we don't pick up some of those women votes,
Yeah, you're right.
But I guess what I'm saying is we can do a better job of articulating a message to them on the issue. That's the thing. Because really, what I'm trying to get across is it's not about a woman's right. It's about a baby's choice. And it's about a baby's right to life. You know, we believe in life, liberty, and the pursuit of
but you're
happiness.
preaching to the choir.
I understand
that.
But from that perspective,
And I agree with
that
you.
gets through to women as well.
Let's bring them in on economic liberty, on limited government, and then on a personal level,
We
let's
can
talk to them about those
Exactly.
moral issues.
And that's typically, I guess, what I try to do as I've gone through this.
When it comes across that we as a party are trying to push this as a party, use
Right.
the government to push our beliefs, that's what causes us
Well,
problems.
but no, here's the problem though, that I see though, Shannon, is the problem is the Democrats are pushing that as their beliefs. And all we're trying to do is roll it back. We're trying to roll it back and say,
Oh, well,
we're trying to
I'm
roll it
sorry.
back and
It
say,
gives us a bad name.
government,
But it's something good.
No,
we're trying
not
to
to
say
carry
government
a
should be
weapon in
involved in
public.
abortion and funding.
That's fine.
You have every right to, but I have to
You shut
So I
it
put it
back.
away.
I mean, you look at.
Yeah, the deal is
they operate.
to sit there and
That
take
makes
my
us think
money
we're a
from
bunch of
me and
cooks.
take it,
Right.
It's fine.
to take my money and then totally
not.
give it to someone that I'm totally against.
Yes, right.
Totally against.
There's a logical way to do that. Call it 10 minutes.
Yes,
Yeah.
Keep
That's what we need to be
the feds
doing.
Shut up, and if the people within the state want it,
Right.
then they can vote.
it's not a perfect answer, but it's the closest we're gonna get.
No, I agree.
That's
And
right.
and
That's
that's
right.
totally,
Constitution.
you know, and the concept of
Yes.
nullification and all that, I totally agree with it. But the bottom line is, you shut off federal funding of Planned Parenthood and you cut off abortions, and it's not right. So I am limiting government by doing that, you know. But we talk about the fact that you know, okay, government should be involved in marriage. The problem is that they are. But the problem is, every right that the homosexual people are seeking to get, they already have.
We can actually turn that on them perhaps. I mean, they're trying to use government to push their beliefs, push it down our throat.
Exactly.
If we stop doing that and say, hey, look, we want you to live your life, we're focused on these issues of governance, let them be the ones that are bad guys trying to push.
Right.
Well, and what
And that's what
I don't want to take anything away from gay rights. I don't want to give them anything. I don't want to take anything away from them. Could be the same thing.
But you look at the agendas that they're trying to push. I mean, Norman City Council is a classic example of they were trying to push through in their city council preferential hiring of homosexuals. That's not equal rights.
They're not free.
Yeah, they're not. They're therefore setting themselves up as they're above us. That's what this is all about. They're trying to take and say equality puts me above you. That's what this is all about. It's not about
more equal
equality.
than others.
Everything that they are pushing for, they already have. You can have visitation of your living partner at the hospital. That's there. You can have access to your living partner. It's called power of attorney or durable power of attorney. That it's there. Medical power of attorney. Every bit of that can be remedied with legal documents that you have to have anyway.
By putting marriage in the realm of government, we actually play into that issue.
You're right.
Them saying we want to be married. You can call it what you want to. I don't have to agree with it.
Right.
But you see the two issues that get hot, they're hot issues. And as long as we put those at the top of our agenda, you're really going to get hot, spirited debate. And those who believe that way are fine, and
But Pam,
those...
here's the deal. They're forcing the issue, and we got to meet them. We can't step off the battlefield.
But if you don't get elected, you can't do anything.
Well,
That's what you do, you get elected, and then
I
you do it from
understand, but you're telling me that we need to drop the issue.
No, I'm not
But
saying drop it.
when we don't step forward and
She's saying
fight
don't make
on
the
the
issue a policy issue.
Well, but it is a policy issue because they're making it a policy issue.
If we keep it in line with what we're supposed to really stand for, individual liberty, and limited government, then it won't be a problem.
But they're not doing that. That's what I'm trying to say.
So
They're trying
we're supposed to
it
set
up
apart.
to where they're above us. And we're
Actually,
just trying
liberty
to
is
step
above
in.
what they would be doing.
That's not what they're doing. You're not listening to what I'm saying. They're
No,
trying to set this up to where they have preference over us.
The only thing I'm
And we
saying
have to stand up to that and fight it and keep it from happening.
is how do we get
It's their
Republicans
agenda.
elected? And I'm saying those two issues may hurt us more than it helps us.
Hey, Dave,
Because
sign
the people
Sure.
that
I
are
want your
all for it, we're not gonna change. It's that big void out here that we want them to come over
I
to our side, and
understand.
I'm not sure that's bringing them.
But by not, they're stepping forward, the liberals are stepping forward and they're making this an issue and we have to engage it because if we don't, it becomes a vacuum and then they're able to go in because if you repeat a lie often enough, it becomes the truth in perception. And so we have to step forward and we have to meet them on the battlefield and fight that fight right there and keep them from redefining it because ultimately what their goal is to place themselves above us. And that doesn't involve liberty, it doesn't involve freedom, it's a false liberty.
And how do we fight them?
By continuing to engage and by continuing to write letters to the editor and get involved and having these types of discussions.
But only elected officials can do that. Only elected officials can make
Even I can
change.
do that. This is one at the,
Well,
this
we
is
can
one at the
hammer them,
coffee
but
shop.
whenever it comes to making change, unless you're an elected official, you do not make change, and we need to get elected
But
officials.
you control public opinion at the coffee shop and one-on-one dialogue and all that. This is one on the doorstep.
This is why the
one
precincts
on
and the grassroots stuff is so
Exactly. That's why I come back to it and why we have to have that engagement with people.
I know, that's why it seems a little bit futile, but I'm sitting here bringing that up to Muskogee, saying, hey, this internet tax, Mark Wade is going to be for it if we don't say something right. We don't say something. We have got to find it before,
And our
he's going to be for this internet tax.
He is. I've already talked to him personally on the phone about it.
I know. Well, I'm going to tell you what, if he votes for it, it's going to be a retirement vote, I think. I'm
Oh,
telling you.
yeah.
I'm telling you, it's going.
He was pretty strong.
He needs
He
to
was
hear
pretty
that.
strong in favor of it when I talked to
Yeah,
him.
well, call his office.
I know, I will.
I called his office in Washington DC. 15 minutes later, someone called me back. I said, good.
Well, I have his cell phone, so I've talked to him on his cell phone about it. Yeah, he wasn't budging.
Well, I know one thing.
Or having the internet or
No, the
internet
sales tax, online sales tax.
Well, when you think about it, what about all the individuals? I could go either way on that. You've got businesses here, they go down to Means Furniture and they pick out a chair that they want and like, then they go online and buy it.
But let me tell you who's really for the internet tax. It's the city.